John Martinez wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stared at the cardboard box in his garage. Inside, 12 tiny German Shepherd puppies squirmed and whimpered, their eyes barely open. His dog Luna had given birth to them 3 weeks ago, and the responsibility was becoming too much for him to handle. As a long-distance truck driver, John spent most of his time on the road. He had never planned for Luna to have puppies, and now the situation was overwhelming him. The constant feeding, cleaning, and care were cutting into his sleep schedule, and the expenses were piling up. His neighbors had complained about the noise, and his landlord had warned him about keeping so many dogs in his small rental house. That morning, John had received another important delivery route that would take him through several states. Looking at the puppies, he made a decision that would change many lives, including his own. He told himself it wasn't that bad. After all, someone would find them and give them better homes than he could provide. Later that evening, as the sun began to set, John loaded the box of puppies into his truck. Luna watched from her kennel, whining softly as if she knew something was wrong. He avoided looking at her as he closed the garage door and climbed into his truck's cabin. The first few hours of his drive were normal. The radio played country music softly as he navigated the highway, trying to ignore the occasional squeaks and whimpers coming from the box behind his seat. Around midnight, he spotted what seemed like a perfect place: a quiet stretch of road near a small town called Millbrook. John pulled over, checking his mirrors to make sure no other vehicles were around. The area was well kept, with neat houses visible in the distance. Surely someone would find the puppies quickly, he thought to himself. He grabbed the box and walked several yards from the road, placing it carefully in a grassy ditch. The puppies were getting more active now, probably hungry for their evening meal. One of them, a little male with a white patch on his chest, tried to climb out of the box. John gently pushed him back in, feeling a twinge of guilt as the puppy licked his hand trustingly. "You'll be fine," he whispered, more to himself than to the puppies. "Someone better will find you." As he walked back to his truck, the sound of 12 puppies crying for their mother grew fainter. John turned up his radio, trying to drown out both the noise and his conscience. He had a long drive ahead, and he needed to focus on his job. What John didn't notice was the security camera mounted on a pole near the highway exit sign. It was part of a new traffic monitoring system the town had installed just 2 weeks ago. The camera silently recorded as his truck pulled away, its footage automatically uploading to the town's database. Back at home, Luna paced her kennel restlessly. Her puppies were gone, and she could do nothing about it. The mother dog's distress would continue for days, breaking the heart of John's elderly neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, who could hear the dog's sad howls through her window. As John drove through the night, he tried to convince himself he had done the right thing. He thought about how much money he would save now, how much easier his life would be without the responsibility of 12 growing puppies. But every time he looked in his rearview mirror at the empty space where the box had been, something felt terribly wrong. He didn't know it yet, but his actions that night would set in motion a chain of events that would affect not only his life, but the lives of many others in ways he could never have imagined. The security camera footage would soon become crucial evidence, and the quiet town of Millbrook would not stay quiet for long about what happened that night. The 12 tiny lives he left behind in that cardboard box would go on to touch the hearts of countless people, and the story of their abandonment and what happened next would spread far beyond the boundaries of that small town. But for now, they huddled together in the darkness, waiting for someone to find them, while their mother waited at home for a return that would never come. Sarah Chen was exhausted after a long 12-hour shift at the Millbrook Veterinary Clinic. As she drove home that night, her headlights caught something unusual moving in a roadside ditch. At first, she thought her tired mind was playing tricks on her, but then she saw it again, a small, dark shape shifting in the darkness. Sarah had been working as a veterinary technician for 5 years, and her instincts told her something wasn't right. She pulled her car over, grabbed her flashlight from the glove compartment, and stepped out into the cool night air. The crickets chirped loudly as she walked toward the ditch, her rubber nursing shoes squishing in the damp grass. As she got closer, she heard faint whimpering sounds. Her heart started beating faster as she pointed her flashlight toward the noise. There, in a cardboard box that was starting to collapse from the evening dew, were 12 tiny German Shepherd puppies, all huddled together for warmth. "Oh my God," Sarah whispered, kneeling down beside the box. The puppies were young, probably only 3 or 4 weeks old. They were clearly hungry and scared, but when she shined her light on them, several wagged their tails hopefully. One puppy, marked with a distinctive white patch on his chest, crawled toward her hand and tried to nurse on her finger. Sarah quickly pulled out her phone and called Dr. Martinez, no relation to John, the senior veterinarian at her clinic. Despite the late hour, he answered on the third ring. After hearing about the situation, he told her to bring the puppies to the clinic immediately. Making 2 trips between the ditch and her car, Sarah carefully moved the puppies, creating a makeshift bed in her backseat using old towels she kept in her trunk for emergencies. The puppies cried out, their high-pitched voices filling her small car as she drove carefully back to the clinic. Dr. Martinez was waiting at the back entrance when she arrived. Together, they brought the puppies inside and began examining them one by one. Each puppy was weighed, checked for dehydration, and given a thorough examination. Remarkably, despite their ordeal, all 12 were in relatively good health. Someone abandoned them recently, Dr. Martinez said, checking the pads of a female puppy's feet. They're not dirty or severely dehydrated yet. They must have been dropped off tonight. Sarah nodded, mixing formula for the hungry puppies. The box was still fairly dry when I found them. It must have happened just a few hours ago. While Dr. Martinez continued the examinations, Sarah took photos of the puppies and the box they were found in. She also noted the exact location where she had discovered them. Something about this didn't feel right, and she wanted to document everything properly. The next few hours were busy as they fed and settled the puppies for the night. The clinic had an empty recovery room that they converted into a temporary nursery, complete with warm blankets and heating pads. The puppies, finally full and warm, fell asleep in a pile, their tiny bodies rising and falling with each breath. Before heading home, Sarah decided to post about the rescue on her social media accounts. She wrote a detailed post about finding the puppies and included several photos, being careful not to reveal their exact location. She also contacted the local animal rescue organization to let them know about the situation. What Sarah didn't expect was how quickly her post would spread. By the time she woke up the next morning, her phone was flooded with notifications. The story had been shared hundreds of times, and people from all over the county were offering to help. Among those who saw the post was Officer Lisa Thompson of the Millbrook Police Department. She immediately remembered the traffic cameras that had been installed near that stretch of road. As Sarah was feeding the puppies their morning bottle, Officer Thompson was already requesting the footage from the previous night. The puppies were safe now, but their story was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. As Sarah watched them play and crawl around their temporary home at the clinic, she had no idea how many lives these 12 abandoned puppies would touch, or how their discovery would lead to a chain of events that would change their small community forever. John Martinez sat at his kitchen table, pushing food around his plate while his 14-year-old daughter Emma scrolled through her phone during dinner. It had been 2 days since he had abandoned the puppies, and though he tried to act normal, guilt gnawed at his conscience. "Dad, look at this!" Emma suddenly exclaimed, turning her phone screen toward him. Someone abandoned 12 German Shepherd puppies near Millbrook. Isn't that horrible? They look just like Luna's puppy's age. John's fork clattered against his plate. There on Emma's screen were the same puppies he had left in that ditch, now clean and cared for at the veterinary clinic. His daughter continued scrolling through the photos, unaware of how her father's face had gone pale. "The whole town is talking about it," Emma continued, her voice filled with concern. "They even have security camera footage of the person who did it. The police are investigating." She paused, looking at another post. "Wait. Dad, isn't that logo on the truck the same as your company's?" Before John could respond, his phone rang. It was Patricia Moore from HR. His hands shook as he answered the call, stepping away from the table. The conversation was brief but devastating. He was suspended immediately, pending investigation. The company had already identified him from the security footage. Emma watched her father's face change as he took the call. She was smart and had already started connecting the dots. When John hung up the phone and turned around, he found his daughter staring at him with tears in her eyes. "Dad, those weren't Luna's puppies in the video, were they?" she whispered. "Please tell me you didn't." The look of disappointment and betrayal on his daughter's face hit John harder than any punishment could. Emma had always looked up to him, had always defended him to others. Now she could barely look at him. Within hours, the story had spread through their neighborhood. Mrs. Thompson, who had heard Luna crying for her puppies, finally understood why. She called animal control to report the incident, adding her testimony to the growing case against John. Local news stations picked up the story, and suddenly John's face was everywhere. Local truck driver identified in puppy abandonment case ran across television screens. His phone filled with angry messages from friends and family. Even his ex-wife called to express her disgust. The next morning, Officer Thompson arrived at his door with a warrant. The evidence was overwhelming. The security footage, Luna's obvious recent pregnancy, witness statements, and a matching truck identification. John was faced with charges of animal cruelty and abandonment. Luna, who had been depressed since losing her puppies, was temporarily removed from his care by animal control. The sight of his dog being led away broke something in John. He watched helplessly as they loaded her into their van, her sad eyes following him until they drove away. At school, Emma faced the consequences of her father's actions. Friends who had known about Luna's puppies now avoided her. Some students made cruel comments, and a few even shared memes about her father online. The once popular teenager ate lunch alone, wondering how her father could have done something so heartless. John's suspension meant no income, and the legal fees were mounting. His savings wouldn't last long. The apartment complex where he lived sent him a warning about violating their pet policy. Everything was falling apart. That evening, as John sat alone in his quiet apartment, he received an unexpected call from Sarah Chen, the vet tech who had found the puppies. Instead of the anger he expected, her voice was calm and compassionate. "The puppies are all doing well," she told him. "They're healthy and growing stronger every day. Mr. Martinez, I know you must be facing a lot right now, but I think there might be a way for you to make this right." John listened as Sarah explained that the clinic and local animal shelter were willing to work with him. If he was willing to take responsibility for his actions and help make a positive change, they would support a different approach than pure punishment. As he hung up the phone, John looked at a photo of Emma on his wall and then at Luna's empty bed in the corner. He had hit rock bottom, but maybe, just maybe, there was a way to fix what he had broken. The path to redemption wouldn't be easy, but for the first time since that terrible night, he saw a glimmer of hope. John Martinez sat at his kitchen table, pushing food around his plate while his 14-year-old daughter Emma scrolled through her phone during dinner. It had been 2 days since he had abandoned the puppies, and though he tried to act normal, guilt gnawed at his conscience. "Dad, look at this," Emma suddenly exclaimed, turning her phone screen toward him. "Someone abandoned 12 German Shepherd puppies near Millbrook. Isn't that horrible? They look just like Luna's puppy's age." John's fork clattered against his plate. There on Emma's screen were the same puppies he had left in that ditch, now clean and cared for at the veterinary clinic. His daughter continued scrolling through the photos, unaware of how her father's face had gone pale. "The whole town is talking about it," Emma continued, her voice filled with concern. "They even have security camera footage of the person who did it. The police are investigating." She paused, looking at another post. "Wait, Dad, isn't that logo on the truck the same as your company's?" Before John could respond, his phone rang. It was Patricia Moore from HR. His hands shook as he answered the call, stepping away from the table. The conversation was brief but devastating. He was suspended immediately, pending investigation. The company had already identified him from the security footage. Emma watched her father's face change as he took the call. She was smart and had already started connecting the dots. When John hung up the phone and turned around, he found his daughter staring at him with tears in her eyes. "Dad, those weren't Luna's puppies in the video, were they?" she whispered. "Please tell me you didn't." The look of disappointment and betrayal on his daughter's face hit John harder than any punishment could. Emma had always looked up to him, had always defended him to others. Now she could barely look at him. Within hours, the story had spread through their neighborhood. Mrs. Thompson, who had heard Luna crying for her puppies, finally understood why. She called animal control to report the incident, adding her testimony to the growing case against John. Local news stations picked up the story, and suddenly John's face was everywhere. Local truck driver identified in puppy abandonment case ran across television screens. His phone filled with angry messages from friends and family. Even his ex-wife called to express her disgust. The next morning, Officer Thompson arrived at his door with a warrant. The evidence was overwhelming. The security footage, Luna's obvious recent pregnancy, witness statements, and a matching truck identification. John was faced with charges of animal cruelty and abandonment. Luna, who had been depressed since losing her puppies, was temporarily removed from his care by animal control. The sight of his dog being led away broke something in John. He watched helplessly as they loaded her into their van, her sad eyes following him until they drove away. At school, Emma faced the consequences of her father's actions. Friends who had known about Luna's puppies now avoided her. Some students made cruel comments, and a few even shared memes about her father online. The once popular teenager ate lunch alone, wondering how her father could have done something so heartless. John's suspension meant no income, and the legal fees were mounting. His savings wouldn't last long. The apartment complex where he lived sent him a warning about violating their pet policy. Everything was falling apart. That evening, as John sat alone in his quiet apartment, he received an unexpected call from Sarah Chen, the vet tech who had found the puppies. Instead of the anger he expected, her voice was calm and compassionate. "The puppies are all doing well," she told him. "They're healthy and growing stronger every day. Mr. Martinez, I know you must be facing a lot right now, but I think there might be a way for you to make this right." John listened as Sarah explained that the clinic and local animal shelter were willing to work with him. If he was willing to take responsibility for his actions and help make a positive change, they would support a different approach than pure punishment. As he hung up the phone, John looked at a photo of Emma on his wall and then at Luna's empty bed in the corner. He had hit rock bottom, but maybe, just maybe, there was a way to fix what he had broken. The path to redemption wouldn't be easy, but for the first time since that terrible night, he saw a glimmer of hope. The morning after Sarah's call, John Martinez stood outside the Millbrook Veterinary Clinic. His hands trembled as he reached for the door handle. Inside, he could hear the faint sounds of puppies barking. His puppies, Luna's puppies. Dr. Martinez met him in the lobby, his expression neutral but not unkind. "Follow me," he said, leading John to the puppy room. The sight that greeted him stopped him in his tracks. All 12 puppies were thriving, playing in a large pen filled with toys and blankets. Volunteers sat among them, bottle-feeding the smaller ones. Star, the puppy with the white chest patch, immediately caught his attention. The small pup was attempting to climb over his siblings to reach a blue bowl, showing the same determination John had noticed the night he abandoned them. The memory made his chest tighten with shame. "Your daughter Emma called us this morning," Sarah said, appearing beside him. "She asked if she could volunteer here after school. She wants to help with the puppies." She paused, watching John's reaction. "We said yes." The mention of Emma hit John hard. Since the truth had come out, his daughter had barely spoken to him. She spent most of her time in her room when she was at his house for visitation, coming out only for meals which they ate in uncomfortable silence. As they watched the puppies play, Dr. Martinez explained the program they had in mind. Instead of pursuing maximum charges, they were offering John a chance to make amends. He would need to attend animal care classes, volunteer at the clinic and shelter, and share his story to educate others about the consequences of animal abandonment. "Your experience could prevent others from making the same mistake," Sarah explained. "But first, you need to understand why what you did was wrong and how to properly care for animals." That afternoon, John attended his first animal care class at the shelter. The instructor, Mary Williams, was tough but fair. She taught him about proper feeding schedules, medical care, and the importance of spaying and neutering pets. John took notes diligently, realizing how much he hadn't known about caring for Luna and her puppies. The real turning point came when Emma visited the clinic after school. John was cleaning kennels when she arrived, part of his volunteer work. She stopped short when she saw him, surprise clear on her face. "Dad," she asked hesitantly, "what are you doing here?" John straightened up, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Trying to make things right, Emma. I know what I did was terrible, and I'm so sorry. I want to learn how to be better." Emma studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. Can we see the puppies together?" That evening, father and daughter sat in the puppy pen together, watching the 12 energetic pups tumble around them. Emma laughed as Star attempted to climb into her lap, his little tail wagging furiously. "You know," Emma said quietly, "Luna misses them, The shelter says she's still sad. John nodded, feeling the weight of his actions. I'm working on getting her back. I need to prove I can be a responsible pet owner first. Over the next few weeks, John threw himself into his volunteer work. He arrived early each morning to help with feedings, stayed late to clean, and absorbed every bit of knowledge the staff shared. The same determination that had made him a reliable truck driver now drove him to become a better person. The puppies grew stronger each day, and so did John's relationship with Emma. She started joining him more often at the clinic, and slowly, the conversations began to extend beyond just the puppies. Other volunteers noticed the change in John, how he spoke more gently, moved more carefully, and seemed to truly care about the animals' welfare. One evening, as John was preparing to leave the clinic, he overheard Emma talking to Sarah. "My dad's different now," she said. "It's like the puppies didn't just get a second chance. They gave him one too." John stood quietly in the hallway, listening to his daughter's words. The man who had abandoned 12 helpless puppies in a ditch was disappearing, and in his place, someone new was emerging. Someone both he and Emma could be proud of. 1 month after the puppy incident, John Martinez stood before a community meeting at the Millbrook Town Hall. His hands were sweaty as he faced the crowd of local residents, many of whom had been involved in rescuing and caring for the puppies he had abandoned. "My name is John Martinez," he began, his voice shaking slightly. "And I'm the person who abandoned those 12 German Shepherd puppies." A murmur went through the crowd, but in the front row, Emma gave him an encouraging nod. John shared his story, not to make excuses, but to help others understand how poor choices could spiral into terrible decisions. He talked about feeling overwhelmed, about not knowing where to turn for help, and about the devastating consequences of his actions. "What I did was unforgivable," he continued. "But instead of punishment, this community offered me a chance to make things right. Today, I want to announce something important." Working with the veterinary clinic and local shelter, John had developed a program called Second Chances. It would provide emergency assistance to pet owners in crisis, offering temporary foster care, pet food assistance, and veterinary care to prevent other animals from being abandoned. In the audience, Sarah Chen smiled. She had helped John develop the program, impressed by his genuine desire to prevent others from making the same mistakes. The clinic had agreed to provide discounted services, and local businesses were already pledging support. After the meeting, Mrs. Thompson, his elderly neighbor, approached him. "Luna misses you," she said softly. "She's doing better at the shelter, but she still looks for you when I visit her." The animal shelter had been caring for Luna while John completed his rehabilitation program. The next day, John faced another important meeting, this time with the local judge handling his case. Thanks to letters of support from the veterinary clinic staff, shelter workers, and even Officer Thompson, the judge was receptive to an alternative resolution. "Mr. Martinez," the judge said, reviewing the documents before her, "your actions were serious, but your response to this situation has been exemplary. Instead of jail time, I'm ordering you to continue your volunteer work and fully implement the Second Chances program." That afternoon, John received news that changed everything. Interstate Express Logistics wanted to meet with him. Patricia Moore, the HR director, had been following his progress through the local news. "We've been impressed by how you've handled this situation," Patricia told him during the meeting. "We'd like to offer you your job back, with one condition. We want you to help establish pet-friendly policies for our drivers who travel with animals." With his job secured and the court case resolved, John faced one final challenge, reuniting with Luna. The shelter had determined he was ready to reclaim his dog, but the moment was both exciting and nerve-wracking. When Luna saw John, she bounded toward him, tail waving frantically. She knocked him over, covering his face with kisses as shelter staff watched with tears in their eyes. Emma, who had come to support her father, captured the moment on her phone. "Look, Dad," she said, showing him the video. "This is going viral too, but for all the right reasons this time." The following weekend, John organized the first Second Chances pet care clinic. Local veterinarians offered free checkups, the shelter provided pet food, and volunteers helped fill out assistance applications. The turnout was overwhelming. During the clinic, several people approached John to share their own stories of struggling with pet care. Rather than judgment, they found understanding and practical help. The program was already achieving its goal. That evening, as John sat at home with Luna curled up beside him and Emma doing homework nearby, he reflected on how much had changed. The puppies, now 7 weeks old, were thriving and would soon be ready for adoption. His terrible mistake had led to something unexpectedly positive. "Dad," Emma called from her desk. "The shelter wants to know if you'll speak at next month's adoption event. They think your story might help more people understand why it's important to ask for help instead of giving up on their pets." John looked at Luna, who thumped her tail against the couch. "Yes," he said. "I'll do it. Every story deserves a chance at a better ending." The transformation from someone who had abandoned puppies in the night to a community advocate for animal welfare was complete. John had learned that making amends wasn't just about saying sorry. It was about creating lasting change. On a crisp morning in Millbrook, Sarah Chen was giving the 12 puppies their regular checkup when she received an unexpected visitor. Jennifer Roberts, a representative from Paws of Purpose, a prestigious service dog training organization, stood in the clinic's doorway, watching the puppies with keen interest. "I've been following their story online," Jennifer explained, kneeling to observe the puppies more closely. "German Shepherds have excellent potential as service dogs, and these puppies have shown remarkable resilience. May I evaluate them?" Star, the puppy with the white chest patch, immediately caught Jennifer's attention. He displayed a perfect balance of confidence and gentleness, approaching her with curiosity while remaining calm and focused. One by one, she observed each puppy's temperament and behavior. "This is extraordinary," Jennifer said after completing her assessment. "All 12 puppies show promising traits for service work. Their early socialization here at the clinic has given them an excellent foundation." When John and Emma arrived for their regular volunteer shift, they found the clinic buzzing with excitement. Dr. Martinez gathered everyone in the conference room while Jennifer explained Paws of Purpose's proposal. They wanted to train all 12 puppies as service dogs. Each puppy would be matched with a veteran or person with disabilities, Jennifer explained. They'd receive specialized training worth thousands of dollars, all covered by our organization. It's a rare opportunity to turn their difficult start into a chance to help others. Emma's eyes widened. "You mean they could help people like Uncle Mike?" she asked, thinking of her father's brother who had returned from military service with PTSD. John squeezed her shoulder, equally moved by the possibility. The next few days were busy with preparations. Each puppy underwent detailed medical screenings and temperament tests. The clinic staff, who had grown attached to their furry charges, knew this was an incredible opportunity but still felt emotional about the upcoming separation. Jennifer worked closely with John and the clinic staff to document the puppies' journey. Their story of abandonment and redemption, now leading to service work, attracted national media attention. Local veterans groups reached out, eager to support the program. One morning, a surprise visitor arrived at the clinic, John's brother Mike. He had seen the news about the puppies and driven across 3 states to meet them. As he sat in the puppy pen, Star immediately approached him, resting his head on Mike's leg. "They know," Mike said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "Somehow they know when someone needs them." It was the most relaxed anyone had seen him in years. The connection was so strong that Jennifer suggested matching Star specifically with Mike once the training was complete. "Sometimes the right dog chooses their person," she explained. As the day approached for the puppies to leave for training, the clinic organized a farewell celebration. The entire community turned out to wish them well. Local businesses donated refreshments, and the mayor presented each puppy with a special collar engraved with their name and Millbrook's finest. John stood at the podium, looking very different from the man who had abandoned these puppies months ago. "These 12 puppies taught me about second chances," he said. "Now they're going to help give new chances to people who really need them." Emma had prepared a photo slideshow of the puppies' journey, from their first night at the clinic to their current robust, playful selves. There wasn't a dry eye in the room as people watched how far they had come. On departure day, each puppy was assigned to a Paws of Purpose trainer. Star gave John and Emma extra kisses before happily following his trainer, seeming to understand he was starting a new adventure. Luna, who had been brought to say goodbye, watched proudly as her puppies left to begin their new lives. "They're going to change lives," Sarah said, standing with John and Emma as the Paws of Purpose vans pulled away. "Just like they changed ours." That evening, John updated the Second Chances program website with news about the puppy's departure for service dog training. Donations poured in from people touched by their story, ensuring more pets and owners would receive help when they needed it. As John walked Luna home that night, with Emma chatting excitedly about visiting Star during his training, he marveled at how his worst mistake had led to something so meaningful. The puppies he had once abandoned were now embarking on a journey to become heroes in their own right. 1 year had passed since the 12 German Shepherd puppies left Millbrook for their service dog training. The town hall was packed with people eagerly awaiting their return for a special graduation ceremony. Banners reading "Welcome Home Heroes" decorated the walls. John Martinez sat in the front row with Emma and Luna, watching as Jennifer Roberts from Paws of Purpose took the stage. Behind her, 12 handlers waited with 12 grown German Shepherds, each wearing a professional service dog vest. "Today, we celebrate not just 12 remarkable dogs," Jennifer began, "but 12 extraordinary partnerships that will change lives forever." One by one, she introduced each dog and their new partner. Star, now a handsome adult dog, stood proudly beside Mike Martinez. The past year of training had transformed both of them. Mike's PTSD symptoms had significantly improved during his training sessions with Star, and now they were officially a team. "Star here knows exactly when I need him," Mike explained to the audience. "Before I even realize I'm getting anxious, he's there grounding me. He's given me my life back." The other partnerships were equally moving. One puppy, now named Hope, was paired with a young girl with epilepsy, trained to detect seizures before they happened. Another, Atlas, worked with a veteran who had lost both legs, helping him navigate daily life with confidence. Sarah Chen wiped tears from her eyes as she watched each presentation. The tiny puppies she had found in a ditch were now sophisticated service dogs, their intelligence and compassion touching lives in ways no one could have imagined. During the ceremony, John was asked to speak. As he approached the podium, all 12 dogs turned to look at him, their tails wagging in recognition. Even after a year, they remembered him. "When I abandoned these puppies, I thought I was solving my problem," John said, his voice steady. "Instead, I almost prevented something amazing from happening. Thanks to this community's compassion, my mistake became a miracle." The Second Chances program John had started was now helping hundreds of pet owners across 3 counties. Several other cities had started similar programs, using Millbrook's model as a template. The security camera footage that had once brought shame now served as a powerful teaching tool in animal welfare workshops. After the ceremony, the community celebrated with a festival in the town square. The service dogs and their partners demonstrated their skills, showing how the dogs could retrieve objects, provide stability, alert to medical conditions, and offer emotional support. Emma spent time with each dog, amazed at how the playful puppies she had helped bottle feed had grown into such capable and dignified animals. Yet when she scratched their ears or played with them during their breaks, she could still see hints of the mischievous puppies they had once been. Mrs. Thompson, who had heard Luna's cries that terrible night a year ago, now watched with satisfaction as the mother dog greeted each of her grown puppies. Luna seemed proud, as if she knew her children had found their true purpose. The local newspaper covered the event with a front-page story titled "From Abandoned to Adored: Millbrook's Miracle Dogs." The article highlighted not just the dogs' achievements, but how their story had transformed the community's approach to animal welfare. That evening, as the celebration wound down, John sat on a bench in the town square with Emma and Mike. Star lay at their feet, alert but relaxed. Around them, the other service dogs and their partners enjoyed the peaceful evening. "You know, Dad," Emma said, "something good really did come from that awful night. Look at how many lives these dogs are touching. And look at how many pets the Second Chances program has helped." John nodded, watching as Luna played gently with her grown puppies during their off-duty time. "Sometimes our worst mistakes lead us to where we're supposed to be," he replied. "These dogs taught me that everyone deserves a chance to make things right." As the sun set over Millbrook, the 12 German Shepherds and their partners prepared to head home to their new lives across the country. They would return for visits and reunions, but their real work was just beginning, transforming lives, one day at a time. The story of the abandoned puppies had come full circle. What began as an act of desperation had evolved into a tale of redemption, purpose, and the extraordinary capacity for both humans and animals to transform lives when given a second chance.